Nitilapavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashta Tashmat Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosvāmī Prabhupada ki jai. Nitilapavishta Mahabhagavat Srila Bhakshara Babaji Mahārāja ki jai. Nitilapavishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitilapavishta Vaishnav Sar Babaji Mahārāja ki Shri Rupano Gauri प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जाय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदाता गिरिराज महाराज की जाय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जाय। श्री मुन देवी गंगा देवी की जाय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जाय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जाय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जाय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जाय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जाय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जाय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय। श्री निताय गौर नितिल विश्व विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तरश्रील भक्ति कुमुद संत गोस्वामी महाराज की जाय। तदीय शुभ आविर्भाव थित जाय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. Seems to be a problem with my connection right now. Is it? Can you hear me right now? Is it everything working? Anyhow, let's just begin then. I can't see any comments if there are any. Let me add the GVP logo. There. All right. Gangeya champeya tare vinindi rochi pravaha snapitatma vrinde panduka bandhu dyuti devavasa vrinde namaste charanaravindam bimbadarodve taramandahasya Nasagramukta duti dipitase Vichitra ratna varanashiyade Vrinde namaste charanaravindam Samasta vaikunta shiro manoshi Krishna sya vrindavana dhanya dhani Tattadikare Vrishabhanuputra vrinde Namaste charanarvedam Taragyaya pallava pushpa bringa Mrigadi birma tava keli kunja Madhvadi birbhanti vibhushamana vrinde Namaste charanarvedam Tadiya dutena nikunjayono Atutkayo keli vidasa siddhi Tvatsobhakam kena niruchatam Tadvrinde namaste charanaravedam Rasa vilasho vashatishta vrinda Vanetaresham grisaroja seva Labhya chapumsam kripaya tavaiva vrinde Namaste charanaravindam Tankirta sesa tvata tantra vidvir Vilabhitanat kila Krishna shaktis Tavaiva murtis tulasi nirloke vrinde Namaste charanaravindam Bhakta vihina aparadha lakshai Shiptashtakamadittarangamadi Kripamayi tvam Sharanam prapanna Vrinde namaste charanaravindam Vrindashtakamya shrinuyat padeva Vrindavanadisha padabja bringa Saprapya vrindavananetavasam Tat prema seva labhate kritartha Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi. Shri Keshavashtakam by Srila Rupa Gosvāmī. Nava Priya Kamanjari Rachita Karna Pura Shriyam Vinitara Malati Kalita Shekare no Jwalam Darojvasita Yuthika Gratita Valguvai Kakshaka Braje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshava Vishangi Manikastani Pranata Shingi Pingekshane Mridanga Mukhi Dhumale Ashabaliham Shivangshi Priye Iti Sasurabhikulam Taralamavayanta Muda Praje Vijayinam Bhaje Avipina Deshata Keshava Kana Pranayame Turan Madhura Narma Koshti Kala Vilasa Nilayan Milay Vivida Vesha Vitotina Sakina Kila Saraya Patishuha Sayantangira Braje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshava Shamambu Kanika Bali Darabilida Gandantara Samura Giri Dhatubir Likita Charupantram Pura Udan Charali Mandale Tuti Vidam Vivagralaka Braje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshava Nibatta Navatarnaka Vali Vilot Kanot Kantaya Nathat Kura Putanchalar Alugubir Bhuvam Tindatin Kalena Dhavala Ghata Lagu Nirvartayantam Pura Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Avipina Deshata Keshava Padatati Birvaram Virachayantam Advashiyam Chalatarala Naichiki Nichaya Doli Dhumra Sraja Marulla Hari Chanchali Krita Dukola Chudanchala Braje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshava Hilasa Murali Kala Tvani Virula Sanmanasa Shanara Kila Ballavi Pulakayantamantar Grihe Muhur Vidadatam Hridi Pramuditancha Goshteshware Braje Vijayinam Bhaje Avipina Deshata Keshava Upeta Pati Sundari Tati Virabhirabhyarchita Smitangkura Karampitar Natarapanga Bhangi Shatai Stanastavaka Sanchara Nayana Chanchari Kanchala Braje Vijayinam Bhaje Avipina Deshata Keshava Idam Nikhila Ballavi Kula Mahotsavolasana Kramena Kilaya Puman Patati Shushtupadashtaka tamujvala diyak sada nijapadaravinda dvaye ratim dadada chanchalam sukayatar vishaka saka vraje vijayinam bhaje vipina deshata keshavam 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 Jaya Keshav-dev, 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 Jaya Keshav-dev, Jaya Keshav-dev, 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 Jaya Keshav-dev. Okay. Sound seems to be very low though, huh? Let me try unplugging the headphones. It might... Haribol. Anyhow. Alright, so today is the Divine Appearance Day of Srila Bhakti Kumuda Santa Goswami Mahārāja. Yes. So let's just, there's a little introduction about the author here. About the author. Srila Bhakti Kumuda Santa Goswami Mahārāja is one of the last disciples of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada in the sannyasa order present today. Srila Bhakti Hriday Ban Goswami Mahārāja and Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Mahārāja brought him to the lotus feet of his spiritual master at the tender age of 11. Upon initiating him, Srila Saraswati Thakur named him Sri Radha Raman Das and carefully arranged for his education. After his disappearance from this manifest world, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada appeared to Sri Radha Raman Brahmachari in a dream and ordered him to accept the renounced order and preach the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu widely. Thus, in 1942, Sri Radharaman Brahmachari accepted sannyas from Srila Bhakti Vichar Jajabar Maharaj in Remuna, Orissa. He later founded Sri Chaitanya Ashram, which has several branches in India. Srila Bhakti Kumuda Santa Goswami Maharaj would never refuse even the tiniest order of Srila Prabhupada or any of his disciples, and he had utmost regard for anyone who had even brief contact with his spiritual master. To this day, this is published in 2004, so to this day, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj regularly sends Srila Bhakti Kumuda Santa Maharaj letters to report on his preaching outside India, to which Srila Santa Maharaj replies with great pleasure, always bestowing his profuse blessings. This exalted Vaishnav, who joined Srila Saraswati Thakur's mission as a mere boy and quickly became renowned for his melodious singing, has just completed his 91st year in loving service to his Divine Master. And actually, let me just, I don't really have time to read this because this is going to be very long. But if you go to vcvani.com or vishuddhachaitanyavani.com, you can just type in vcvani.com, and then there's a very beautiful article by Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj. But I read this on his disappearance day, but it's too long for me to read today. So today we're just going to read an article by him. Also, on this website, gurudevmemories.com, we have those letters that, I just read about the letters from Srila Bhakti Kumuda Santa Goswami Maharaj to my Gurudev. That's here. Let's see. Here, blessings. Shall we read those now? I don't think they're too long. Okay, let's just read this. Oh, this is just one letter. Anyhow, let's make the text bigger. Here's another picture of them. So let's make this bigger. Okay, all glory to Shishi Guru and Gauranga Chudandi Swami Bhakti Kumuda Santa Mahārāja, founder and president of Sri Chaitanya Ashram, 23 Bhupen Roy Road, Behela. This is written on 2001, February 3rd. With much affection for my dear Narayan Maharaj, I am wishing for your eternal well-being. I became extremely pleased to receive your letter from far off England. You have Shraddha in me. Therefore, even in such a faraway place, you remembered me and wrote me a letter. The Kripa Shakti, the mercy potency of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur Prabhupada and of your Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosvāmī Maharaj, has been profusely transmitted to you. There is not even a scent of doubt about this. This is obvious from seeing the way the large numbers of people outside of India are becoming attracted by your Hari Katha. The way they are following you, as well as assembling wherever you go, is not ordinary. I have crossed my 87th year and am now 88 years old. Due to my advanced age, I cannot move about as I used to. It is greatly inspiring to witness how you are preaching the message of Srila Prabhupada. May your success ever increase. This is my heartfelt prayer at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. Accept my affection and blessings and give them to the others as well. What else should I write? Blessings from Sri Bhakti Kumuda Santa. There are also more letters from him, I think. Yeah, I remember there being a few more letters, but anyways, that's one. Anyhow, that's just an example. So let's find it. Where? I'm just checking everything's okay. Looks like it. All right, let's start. So this is the impetus for sense gratification. Categories of jivas. We observe many types of jivas around us. A jiva is a conscious being. Jivati iti jiva. That which has life is a jiva. They have been divided into five categories, namely those whose consciousness is covered, stunted, budding, blossoming, and fully blossomed. And the Sanskrit words for this is these 5 levels of consciousness are Achadit Chetan, Sankuchit Chetan, Mukulit Chetan, Vikasit Chetan, and Purna Vikasit Chetan. This is explained in Jaiva Dharma. So, covered, stunned, budding, blossoming, and fully blossomed. Non-moving beings such as trees and stones have covered consciousness. They are able to feel, but not act. Animals and birds have stunted consciousness because, unlike stationary beings, they can move from one place to another and have more evolved level of awareness. Nonetheless, they lack the ability to differentiate between good and bad. Being ignorant and unable to discriminate, they live fully under the direction and control of material nature. The consciousness of jivas in the human species of life is either budding, blossoming, or fully blossomed. What is that? That is Mukulit, Vikasit, and Purna Vikasit. Such jivas can be further divided into 3 groups: immoral atheist, moral atheist, and moral theists. Immoral atheists lack faith in either moral principles or the Supreme Lord. Moral atheists do not accept that God exists independently of morality. In other words, they consider him to be subject to the rules of ethical conduct. Interesting. Moral theists, by contrast, fall into 2 categories: hypothetical theists and true theists. The hypothetical theist tries to understand the Supreme Lord by speculation, as illustrated by the statement Sarakanam hitartaya brahmano rupa kalpana. In other words, he believes that God has no form or qualities, and tries to meditate upon him solely by relying on his own imagination. The true theist, however, is quite different. He knows that God's form and qualities are eternal, and he performs his sadhana, or practices to attain perfection, with that conception. What are the sense objects? A conscious entity will have a basic tendency of the heart that is either material or transcendental. Sri Premvivarta outlines the history of a material proclivity, which is extremely difficult to rid oneself of. Krishna bahirmukha hoya bhogavancha kore, nikatastha maya tare japatiya dhare. As soon as the living entity misuses his independence by becoming indifferent to Sri Krishna and desiring to enjoy the objects of the senses, then the illusory energy, which is very nearby, ensnares him. The root cause of our material tendency is forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord Sri Hari. This forgetfulness awakens within us the impetus to enjoy our senses, thus dragging us very far from the Supreme Lord. The sense objects do not consist of money, a large house, and so on, but of A, a form, B, taste, C, smell, D, sound, and E, touch. Our 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, namely the eyes, tongue, nose, ears, and skin, are engrossed in form, taste, smell, sound, and touch, respectively. Thus, they are intimately connected with these 5 functions. When combined together, these 5 objects of sense gratification manifest for a man as the form of a woman, and for a woman as the figure of a man. The mutual desire between a man and woman is insatiable. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 9:19-14 states, Najatu kama kamanam upabhogena samyati. Lusty desires can never be purged through continued enjoyment. Lust is not satiated by engaging in sense gratification. It only burns more fiercely. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Antilila 6:199 states, Tatapi vishayar swabhav kore maha anda, she karma korai jate hoy bhava bandha. Those who are attached to materialistic life become blind to spiritual life, and they thus bind themselves to the cycle of repeated birth and death by the actions and reactions of their activities. The living entity's plight, which arises from his natural affinity for sense enjoyment, is like that of a man tirelessly pursuing a mirage he has come to cherish deeply. Such living entities who chase the objects of the senses cannot judge whether the mirage they are pursuing will actually fulfill them or merely end up deceiving them. In this world, everyone is actively furthering his own selfish motives. But the society of intellectuals should ask itself whether or not perfect happiness can in fact be found when both they who seek it and they who claim it to be able to offer it. Let me reread that. But the society of intellectuals should ask themselves, not itself, right? Oh, the society should ask itself, yes, sorry. The society should ask itself whether or not perfect happiness can in fact be found when both they who seek it and they who claim to be able to offer it are themselves unfulfilled. By seeking mutual sense gratification in this world, people only suffer misery. Krishna buli se jiva anadir bahirmukh, ataeva maya tare dea sangsara dukh. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 21:17. Forgetting Sri Krishna, the living entity has been captivated by material nature from a time without beginning. Therefore, the illusory energy inflicts upon him all kinds of suffering in his material existence. Curing the fever of material existence. The living entity who is indifferent to the Supreme Lord is so tightly bound by Maya, the illusory energy, that he can never free himself. Therefore, Sri Bhagavan has said in Bhagavad Gita 7:14, Mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etang taranti te. Only by surrendering unto the Supreme Lord can one remain aloof from Maya, which blinds one with the passion for sense enjoyment. Clouded by Maya, the living entity becomes so influenced by the modes of material nature that he considers sense gratification to be the most desirable goal, even though it brings him only distress. He is unable to find any happiness despite his pains. Kurvam dukkha pratikaram sukhavan manyate grihi. This is Śrīmad Bhagavatam 339. The living entity considers the mere absence of distress to be bliss. Real happiness cannot be found in this material world, as it does not lie in sense gratification. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 9.420 states, Kamam cha dase na tu kama kamyaya. Mahārāja Ambarish desired only to serve the Supreme Lord without any self-interest. One should similarly aspire to be the eternal servant of Sri Krishna without using this position as a means to satisfy one's material ends. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, Amito tomar tumito yamar ki kajaya paradhane. Sharanagati from the song Atmi Nivedan. I am indeed yours, and you are truly mine. What need is there of any other treasure? Unless we attain such a realization, we remain intoxicated by the desire to enjoy the objects of the senses, a condition that is extremely difficult to cure. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Vishaye je priti eve achaye amar, she mata priti hok charane tomar. From Gitavali, the song Prabhu Tava Pada Yuge. I pray that I may develop as much attraction for your auspicious feet as I now have for worldly affairs. I love that prayer. Vishaya je priti ebe, acharya amar, however much attraction, love, attachment I have towards Vishaya, towards the objects of the senses, she mata, to that, in that same way, priti hok, may I have attraction, love, attachment, charane tomar, for your lotus feet. If by good fortune we develop as much attachment for the Supreme Lord as we now have for the objects of the senses, our desire for sense enjoyment will be eradicated and we will cross the ocean of birth and death. Our state of bondage has existed since a time without beginning, and it is quite impossible for human intelligence to undo. It can be unraveled only by associating with sadhus, realized souls. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shashtre Koi, Lava Matra Sadhu Sanghe, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 22:54. The verdict of all revealed scriptures is that even a moment's association with a sadhu can award all perfection. Although such sadhus are our greatest well-wishers, we prefer to keep our distance from them, let alone actually associate with them. We know that their association will subdue our desire for sense enjoyment, making it impossible for us to enjoy the objects of the senses. Renouncing lust for love. Everyone is controlled by the desire for sense enjoyment, whether he be a householder or a renunciate. If a person has not yet clearly defined his ultimate goal, accepting household life and renouncing the world are both quite useless. We must become one-pointed in trying to attain the Supreme Lord. This is indeed the sadhan, the spiritual practice of a devotee. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 869, it is said, Javat kshurasti jatare jarata pipasa, tavat sukaya bhavato nanu bhakshapeye. Varieties of food and drink make one feel very happy as long as there is hunger and thirst within the stomach. We find that we are unable to relish food if we are not hungry or thirsty. Similarly, if the hunger to attain love for the Supreme Lord has not arisen in our hearts, how can we become inclined to engage in activities that lead us to Him? In any case, our one-pointed objective must be to make sincere endeavors to accept what the community of saintly persons have given us, and as giving us still. Indeed, it has been said, Sadhu Sange Krishna Nam e matra chai, Sansara Jinite ar kona vastu nai. Besides Sadhu Sangha and Krishna Nam, I do not need anything to live in this world. Sri Gaur Hari has instructed the living entities through his own life's example that the holy name is our only objective, our only sadhya, and our only practice to achieve that objective, sadhan. He has shown us that all our desires can be fulfilled by taking shelter of the Lord's holy names. Those whose minds are deeply engrossed in the sense objects, who are uninterested in developing affection for Sri Hari, and who wish to spend their lives solely in trying to enjoy their senses, can never find relief from the continual hankering for sense gratification. Atmendriya priti vancha tare boli kam, Krishnendriya priti icha dhore prema nam. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila 4:165. The desire to gratify one's own senses is lust, kam. But the desire to please the senses of Sri Krishna is love, prem. Satisfying one's lust is called sense gratification. Making sincere efforts to free oneself from this is called renouncing the desire for sense gratification. Translated from Sri Gauriya Patrika, Year 39, Issue 7, 1987. All right. So if you get time, you can. I recommend you go to. Just type in vcvani.com. vishuddhachaitanyavani.com, vcvani.com, and then there you'll find this article by Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj. I wish I could read it now, but it's just not enough time, and it's too long. So I'll end with some kirtan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Sachinanda, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachinanda, Jaya Gaura Hari, Jaya Sachinanda, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachinanda, Jaya Gaura Hari, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Bhakti Kumud Shila Santa Gosvāmī, Jaya Bhakti Kumud Shila Santa Gosvāmī, Jaya Bhakti Kumud Shila Santa Gosvāmī, Bhakti Kumud Shila Santa, Jaya Saparshara Shila Prabhupada, Saparshara Shila Prabhupada, Jaya Saparshara Shila Prabhupada, Saparshara Shila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Bol. जय श्री गुरु गौरांग गंधार्विका गिरिधारी श्री श्री राधा विनोद बिहारी जू की जय, श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मरण महान जू की जय, नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अश्वतर शतस्माद शिल भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय, नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अश्वतर शतस्माद शिल भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय, नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अश्वतर शतस्माद शिल भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज शिल प्रभुपाद की जय, नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अश्वतर शतस्माद शिल भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय, नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद Ashtatarashta Shrimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosvāmī Prabhupada ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Mahābhagavat Śrīla Gokshara Babaji Mahārāja ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Mahārāja ki jai. Shri Rupa Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shāra Gosvāmī Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradati Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shnitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyaya Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhyai Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Oh my God, I spaced out the most important part. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shmajla Bhakti Kumuda Santa Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Dandavat pranams to Krishna Prabhu, Pradyumna Prabhu, Rasangi Mataji, Hari Bo, Dandavat pranams.